try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, don't free me. Looking for change, looking for pain, pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane, pick up the pieces and go rearrange.
People versus Letecia Stauch. Record should reflect the jury's not present in the courtroom. Is there anything we need to take up outside the presence of the jury at this point in time? Prosecution?
No, Your Honor.
Defense? Okay, let's go ahead and bring him in.
Good morning, good morning, good morning. If you guys can hear everything okay, let me get a blue heart there in the chat. I hope everyone had a wonderful weekend. Thank you for joining us. This is the trial of Letecia Stauch. She is accused of murdering her stepson, Gannon. This is day 5. Trigger warning, the medical examiner is supposed to begin, and this may be sensitive. If you need to take a break, please do so. Your mental health is very important to me, to those around you, to yourself. So make sure that, if this gets overwhelming, that you stop and take a break, set your phone down, close your computer, get some fresh air. Love you guys. Here we go.
All rise for the jury, please. Thank you. You may all be seated. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to start our day again as we have every other day. Has anything occurred since any of you to believe that you could not continue to serve as a fair and impartial juror in this case? If so, please raise your hand. No response? All right. When we took our break on Friday, we were still in the midst of the prosecution's case in chief. That's where we will resume today. Mr. Allen, call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We would call Dr. Susan Ignacio.
Dr. Ignacio, if you would step forward and raise your right hand, please, ma'am.
And then the witness stands right there.
You swear affirm the testimony about to give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Go ahead and have a seat in the witness stand. Please watch your step as you step into the stand. All right, Mr. Allen.
Thank you, Your Honor. Doctor, will you please introduce yourself to our jury and then spell your first and last name for the record?
My name is Susan Ignacio, SUSANIGNACIO.
Dr. Ignacio, what is your occupation?
I'm an associate medical examiner
Where is that?
at the District 6 Medical Examiner's Office in Largo, Florida.
Okay. Can you give the jury your employment history, basically, as an assistant medical examiner?
I did a year after my fellowship in forensic pathology in Miami. I did a year in District 5, that's in Leesburg, Florida. And then after that, I worked at the District 6 Medical Examiner's Office, and it's been approximately 23 years.
23 years as a associate medical examiner?
Yes.
What do you do as an associate medical examiner?
We determine the cause and manner of death by performing autopsies or external examinations of a dead person.
Okay. Do you have specific education that allows you to do that job?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury about that, please?
4 years of med school, 5 years of general pathology, a year of forensic pathology.
What schools did you go to?
I went to med school in the Philippines, and then I did my 5 years of general pathology in Jackson Memorial Hospital in Miami, and then a year of forensic pathology in the Miami-Dade Medical Examiner's Office.
Do you also participate in training that allows you to stay current on your job?
Yes.
Tell the jury some of that, please.
Every year we attend meetings, conferences by the National Association of Medical Examiners and the Florida Association of Medical Examiners.
Are you licensed?
Yes.
Tell the jury about that.
My license?
Yeah. I mean, what state are you licensed?
Oh, I'm licensed in Florida.
How long have you been licensed in Florida?
24 years, I think.
Do you have certifications that you hold as a part of your job?
Yes, we have to take a board exam after our general pathology residency. I had to take a board exam that's in anatomic pathology. So I'm board certified in anatomic pathology, and then I had to take a board exam after my forensic pathology. So I'm board certified in forensic pathology.
Okay. How long have you held that certification?
20 years.
Okay. Quite a long time.
Yes.
How many autopsies have you performed as an associate medical examiner?
At least 6,000.
Have you testified as an expert witness in a court proceeding?
Yes.
Can you give the jury a rough estimate as to how many times you've testified as an expert?
I don't know. It's too many to count.
Can you give the jury an impression of where you've testified as an expert? And what I mean by where is which courts?
Mostly in Florida, or all in Florida, in Miami, Pinellas and Pasco counties. Those are my counties in District 6. I testified in federal court in Tampa, which is Hillsborough County. When I used to work in District 5, there are 5 counties, so I testified in those 5 courthouses. Volusia County, which is Daytona Beach, and Miami-Dade.
Okay, so am I right to understand that you've testified as an expert witness in both federal court and in state court?
Yes.
All in Florida?
Yes.
At this time, I would move to have Dr. Ignacio qualified as an expert witness in forensic pathology.
Defense?
No objection.
Witness will be so qualified. Go ahead.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Ignacio, I want to have you go back to March of 2020. Were you helping out in Santa Rosa County for any autopsies that they needed at that time?
Yes.
Did you get involved in an autopsy of a young child by the name of Gannon Stauch?
Yes.
Can you tell the jury how that happened, how you got involved in that?
We were helping District 1, which is in Pensacola. We were covering that district, so I happened to be working that week there.
And what were the, the initial information that you got before you performed that autopsy?
I was told that there was a decomposed body of a child found inside a suitcase underneath the highway.
Were you able to see some pictures of that body as it was recovered underneath that bridge?
Yes, I saw the scene photos.
And then the body that was brought to you for the autopsy process, was it the same body that you were able to visually observe in those photographs from the scene under the bridge?
Yes.
What date did you actually perform the autopsy?
On March 18.
Okay. And Your Honor, may I approach with People's Exhibits 144 through 180?
You may go ahead.
First, in Your Honor, can I stand here for just a moment? while I
Yeah,
go
that's fine.
These bigger diagrams. I'm showing you what's first been marked as 144. Do you recognize this?
Yes,
What is 144?
that's my body diagram.
Is this taken directly from your autopsy report?
Yes,
Is it a fair and accurate representation of the overall body diagram that you generated for this autopsy?
yes,
And then 145 and 146, do you recognize these items?
yes.
145, what does it appear to be? This is the top one.
Yeah, that's the diagram of the head.
Did you prepare this when you prepared your autopsy report in this case?
Yes,
And then 146, do you recognize this?
yes.
What is 146?
It's the diagram of the top of the head, the skull, and under the chin.
Is it, did you prepare this the same time as you performed or prepared the autopsy report for this case?
Yes,
Are these exhibits 144, 145, and 146 fair and accurate representations of the diagrams you prepared?
yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I'd move for admission of 144, 145, and 146.
Defense?
No objection, Judge.
You will have to submit copies of those for uploading after the case is done, because obviously you can't do those. So, but other than that, 144, 145, and 146 are admitted. Go ahead.
And then, Doctor, while I'm going to set these diagrams up, if you could look through the rest, 147 through 180, I believe it is. Will you flip through those and tell me when you're done looking at those? For those just joining us, this is the medical examiner. This may be difficult to watch, so this is a little trigger warning. I just want to keep reiterating it. Your mental health is important. Take a break if you need to. We're just getting started, but I think it's going to be a difficult Have you had a
day.
chance to
Thank
look
you.
through all of those, Doctor?
Yes.
What do all of 147 through 180 appear to be?
These are the photographs of the decedent.
Are they fair and accurate representations of what you saw when you performed the autopsy on March 18th of 2020 on the young child Gannon Stauch?
Yes.
Your Honor, at this time, I would move for admission of 147 through 180.
Mr. Cook? Right. 7.
No objection.
It's 147 through 180 will be admitted. Go ahead.
And permission to publish, Your
You may.
Honor. Go to 7. So, Dr. Ignacio, I've got 147 on the board behind you. And then to help the jury understand what we're looking at here, if you need to reference any of the body diagrams, please just let us know which body diagram that we need to have up on the easel. And then we'll use that to coincide with what we have in the photographs up on the screen. Is that okay?
Okay.
So in People's 147, is that a picture from the scene underneath the bridge of the boy that was eventually identified as Gannon Stauch?
Yes.
And is that the same child that you performed the autopsy on March 18th?
Yes.
Okay. You could advance to 148. So we're looking at People's Exhibit 148 now on the screen. Let's just go preliminarily. Are there very apparent signs of decomposition visible in People's Exhibit 148?
Yes.
Can you just describe, so that the jury understands, what it is that you are calling that decomposition?
The whole body looks decomposed. It doesn't look like, normal fresh body. You see a brown gray discoloration on the skin. The right hand, you can already see the bones because it's starting to decompose the skin.
Dr. Ignacio, that red handle thing is a pointer. I see that you're pointing with your hand. That may help you, may not. It's up to you.
Okay.
And the tip of that thing pops off just to keep you on your toes, doctor.
So you can see that the right hand, you're already losing some skin there, so the bone's exposed. You're already seeing bone here because the skin's already decomposed and disappeared. Brown discoloration all over.
And then there's black linear lines in the abdomen and chest area, and also on the, I guess, would be the left hip there. Are those also signs of decomposition, or what does that appear to be?
Yes, I think it looks like could be from the clothing.
Okay. So clothing can have an effect on a body as it's decomposing as well?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a measurement device there in People's Exhibit 148 as well.
Yes.
Is there a wound apparent in People's Exhibit 148 that you can point out for the jury?
Yes,
And if you need to stand up, you can feel free.
There's a laceration here on the left chest. Right, this one here. You can't really see it clearly because of the decomposition. The lines are ill-defined. There's a wound here, a wound here, here. There's another wound up here.
And then as we go through these photos, is it a wide angle shot like this where you can see sort of contextually where a wound might be and then it zooms in closer in the next photo?
Yes.
All right. When you say a laceration, just so that we're all on the same page.
It's not a laceration, it's a sharp force injury.
Okay. So that's what I wanted to ask you about. A sharp force injury, what does that mean when a person like you, a medical examiner, says that?
It's a wound caused by a sharp object like a knife or a blade.
Okay. And can you tell us, generally speaking, we're going to look at a number of these sort of sharp force injuries. Are these deep injuries, shallow injuries, generally speaking?
It depends. Some could be shallow, superficial, or they can be deep.
And that's as apparent in this particular autopsy as well. Some are deeper than others.
Yes.
Okay. If we could go on to 149. Is 149 a close-up of what we just looked at in 148?
Yes, this is a close-up.
So can you tell us, as we look at that, how we understand that to be a sharp force injury? What about it tells us that?
Looking at the wound here, you can't really tell it clearly, but when it went into the rib, the third rib, you could see that it's a sharp, like clean-cut line because it hit the rib and the space between the two ribs, which is called the intercostal space where there's muscle. So that wound there looks like a knife wound or something that's sharp, caused by something sharp.
Did the decomposition state of this body cause some difficulty in identifying injuries that might have been contributing to what caused the death in this case?
Some of them.
Okay. Now, if we can move on to 150.
This is another sharp force injury. And you can see that it doesn't really look like a sharp force injury because it's got jagged edges from the decomposition. But then you can see the wound inside, that it was just like a linear, straight, clean-cut wound.
If we could go on to 151.
And that's a close-up of the wound.
So let's talk, now that we're seeing this one close up. This looks almost like a hole in the body as opposed to a slit or a slice or maybe even a stab. Tell the jury why that might be for this particular injury and how you can still call this a sharp force injury.
Yes, if you look at the skin here where it was cut, it's clean, it's a straight line. But because of decomposition, there's stretching of the skin and it loses elasticity. So that's why it looks round and not slit-like. Like this one is another wound that looks like a sharp force injury. You can see that it's got sharp tips. That looks like a knife wound.
Okay. If we can move on to 152, I believe the numbering is.
So there's another sharp force injury in the chest, the left chest, and you can see that it's also elongated. That didn't enter the chest cavity, but just hit the muscle, the pectoralis muscle.
Okay, and then 153.
That's a close-up. You can see that it's got a clean line there, straight edge.
Okay. And then these measuring devices that we see in these photographs, does that help us give an idea as to how long a particular wound might be?
Yes.
Okay. 154.
Showing the sharp force injury that's like right above the clavicle on the left.
One thing I want to have you point out in this particular photo, Dr. Ignacio, is there's a blurred area on this particular photo. Has that been altered?
Yes.
Does that just, if it had been unblurred, would show the victim's face?
Yes.
And is this just to be more sensitive to the victim and potentially the jurors as we're watching this or looking at these?
Yes.
155.
This just shows you a close-up view of the same one that was above the clavicle, left clavicle.
And this one again looks almost roundish. How can you tell and how can we understand this to be a sharp force injury as well?
The edges are clean and straight. It's not jagged. And the wound that was in the muscle was also straight.
Okay. 156.
This one shows you another sharp force injury in the left upper arm that's near the armpit right there.
And 157.
And this is a close-up view.
So now that we've seen several of these sharp force injuries where they're almost pulled open and in a rounded appearance, is that basically what you testified to earlier, that as the skin is shrinking and pulling away, that it pulls the wound open more than it would have if we were close in time to when these injuries occurred?
Yes.
Okay. 158.
Here's another sharp force injury on the left wrist region.
And this one we can now see must have been taken before the clothing was taken off the body. You can see some of the clothing that the victim was wearing. Is that likely what the person was wearing when they died?
Yes.
How can you tell that?
Because of all the fluids, decomposition fluids, the coloring, the clothing.
We had a crime scene technician from Santa Rosa testify late last week that also testified that there were defects in the clothing indicating that there were these slices or sharp object cuts into the fabric that coincided with the injuries we see on the body. Did you notice that as well?
Yes.
Okay. 159.
159 is a close-up view of the wound on the left upper arm, like near the axilla.
Okay. In all of these injuries that we're looking at, are all of those injuries marked on that body diagram that you have up on the easel there, which
Yes.
is 144?
Yes.
Okay. If we could go to 161. Is that right? 160, my apologies. What are we looking at in 160?
So this is a photograph of the left hand, and it kind of covers, the ruler covers it, but there's another cut here. Sharp force injury.
Then moving on to 161.
And this is the right hand, the back of the right hand. And you got 1, 2, 4, clean cut by a sharp object.
When we're looking at these in conjunction with the last photo of the arm and then this one here with hands, when we're talking about cuts to the hands in the forearm areas of Gannon Stauch, how would you characterize those types of wounds?
They're consistent with defensive wounds,
Okay.
trying to protect yourself.
Indicating that potentially Gannon was putting his hands up to guard against whatever was happening,
Yes.
and then they get cut in the process of that.
Yes.
Okay. 162, please.
This one shows, excuse me. This one shows the right hand, like the palmar aspect of the right hand, and this is another cut in the middle finger, right middle finger.
163.
Same photo, right there.
Okay, and this is
This
just
is the ring finger.
right.
This is the oh sorry, no sorry, that's the middle finger, and the ring finger's right here.
Okay, and then you're just pulling the fingertip back to be able to see that particular cut more towards the, I guess, the pad of the fingertip.
Yes.
164, please.
So we're looking at his back, and there's a sharp force injury on the left upper back, right there.
This sharp force injury to the upper back, was this one of the deeper sharp force injuries that you were able to document that Gannon suffered?
Yes, it fractured the left sixth rib, and it also penetrated the left fifth intercostal space. So that's the space between the fifth and sixth ribs.
Does that then cause, I guess, entry into, I guess, the back side of the chest cavity? Does it go that deep?
Yes, it does enter the chest cavity.
165.
And that's a close-up view of the back injury.
Again, is this a sharp force injury similar to the other sharp force injuries we've been looking at this morning?
Yes.
166.
So there's another sharp force injury here. Another one here.
Would this be essentially the back side of Gannon's left shoulder?
Yes. So this wound ended in the scapula. It hit the bone here, so it just went through the bone, the shoulder blade. And then this one went deeper into the shoulder joint, the left shoulder joint, about 4 inches deep.
4 inches deep, you said?
Yes.
167, please. This is a close-up of that more shallow injury, and then the other deeper one is apparent sort of to the left of that.
Yes.
There appears to be some black fiber there. Can you tell the jury what that is?
It could be from his jacket or t-shirt.
So basically fibers from clothing.
Yes.
Is it common for fibers from clothing to get caught up in wounds when there's these sharp force injuries that travel from outside of clothing, through the clothing, and into the body?
Yes.
168.
This is another view of the top of the shoulder where you can see the injury that went into the shoulder joint.
169.
That's a close-up view. And you know that it's a sharp force injury because it's got clean edges here.
So when you're pointing at those, what you call clean edges, to me, it doesn't necessarily look that way, but I'm not in your shoes with your expertise. Those edges that you're pointing at, is that where the skin would have met before being sliced open?
Yes, this is fat, subcutaneous tissue underneath the skin. So these are the skin edges, but they just stretched and separated. But this is where it was cut.
And is this that deeper injury that you mentioned just a moment ago?
Yes.
To the basically the top, maybe backish part of his left shoulder.
It entered the shoulder joint.
Okay. 170.
This one is a blurred photo of another sharp force injury on the left forearm.
The inside of the left forearm?
Yes.
And then this one also has a blurred area sort of in the groin area. Do you see that?
Yes.
Is that blurred out just for sensitivity's sake?
Yes.
Okay. 171.
And that's a close-up view. So you can see it's got another sharp edge and you've just got tissue that's coming out from the wound, but that's the cut edge right here.
Okay. And this is on the, what I would describe as inside of the left wrist. Is that right?
Yes.
Or forearm area?
Yes.
172. What are we looking at in 172?
So this is the head and you're looking at the left side. The ear is right here. So there's a cut right in the posterior or the back part of the ear on the scalp.
173.
And a close-up view, the cut.
Let's talk, since we're now seeing for the first time head injuries. Can you tell the jury, just so that we're all clear, do head injuries have a tendency to bleed heavier than other types of injuries that a human could sustain?
Yes, there's a lot of blood vessels in the scalp.
And does that cause more bloodletting, potentially staining of scenes where blood is coming out of a person?
Yes.
174.
We're looking at the right side of the head and we're trying to show, this time it's a laceration. It's not caused by a sharp object. It's caused by a blunt object. So we call them lacerations because it's so hard to see because it's decomposed, but the edges are jagged and underneath the skin, you can still see what they call tissue bridging. That means it wasn't completely cut. Like with a knife, you can completely cut the skin and the subcutaneous tissue, but with blunt trauma, with a blunt object, you may still see some tissue that's not separated yet. So this is a laceration on the right temporal region.
So would this be basically right side of the head towards almost a little bit to the back of the head there?
Yes, the ear is right here, right ear, and then you can see that there's a wound here.
Okay. 175.
And here you can see the wound. I don't know if you can see it, but that's the wound right here. And you can see like the edges are not like a knife wound.
So these injuries, as you look at them as the expert in this, the edges are different to you from what we've seen before from the sharp force injuries.
Yes.
And then when we talk about a blunt force injury like this, what kind of things can cause a blunt force injury like these?
Any blunt object like a bat, piece of wood, hammer.
Could even the butt of a gun?
Yes.
176.
So this is another laceration that's on the top of the head.
And when you say laceration, are we again talking about another blunt force injury
Yes.
to the top of Gannon's head?
Yes, and then this is the skull, the bone right here, and there are no fractures.
Okay. 170, is it 77? 177?
So this is the one we were looking at previously, and then there were other two lacerations on the top of the head.
And again, just so that we're clear, when we say other two lacerations on the top of the head, are those other two also blunt force injuries?
Yes, and you can see that the edges are jagged. It's not like a clean cut. So that's why I called it laceration.
Okay. 178?
So when we peel the scalp, remember the laceration that was on the right temporal region behind the ear? These are skull fractures right here. And then some of the bone fell, and you can see some brain tissue, decomposed brain. So this is a fracture, 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 fracture.
When we talk about this area of the skull, you use the word temporal. Does that to layperson mean temple area basically extending to the back area?
Yes.
Is that bone thinner than other parts of the skull on the head?
Yes, the temporal bone is, but it also involves the other bones.
And so what I'm driving at is, would it take a lot of force to cause these types of fractures through a blunt force strike?
Yes.
And just so we're clear, since we've moved past the sharp force injuries and now we've looked at all of the blunt force injuries in these photographs, how many sharp force injuries did Gannon suffer that you were able to document in your autopsy?
I counted 18.
And then as it relates to the number of blunt force injuries that Gannon suffered, how many did those occur?
4 lacerations.
4 lacerations that coincide with blunt force injury?
Yes.
Okay. If we could move on to 179. What are we looking at in 179?
So this is the left side of the face. Here's the ear, head, eye area. This is the jaw, the left side of the jaw, lower jaw. And there's a hole right here.
What caused that hole?
This is due to a gunshot wound.
180.
And this is a close-up gunshot wound.
Is it typical, doctor, when you document a gunshot to try to figure out path the bullet traveled as it entered into a human victim?
Yes.
Did you do that in this case?
Yes.
Can you describe, either using the diagrams or just through words, however you want to do it, can you describe the path that this particular bullet took through Gannon as it entered his body?
I think we should use.
Okay, I'll come over and help.
Oh, it's not easy.
Which one do you want? 46, 145? 145? Make it easier on our jury, we also got the shortest easel we could find. So I'm gonna hold this up actually, doctor, if that's okay.
Go back.
That's, well, they won't be able to see it.
Okay.
Back there.
So the entrance gunshot wound was in the left side of the jaw, lower jaw, the mandible. This entered the oral cavity. It hit the cervical, this second and third cervical vertebrae. So it went to the back. It crossed the midline, and I recovered the projectile. It didn't enter the skull, the cranial cavity. So I recovered it on the right side where the muscles are of the neck. So there was a projectile that went from left to right and then front to back.
And then, so when you recovered the projectile, was it still in the, basically the muscle tissue in the back of the head?
Yes.
Okay.